Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of DABCC TV. I'm very happy and excited to have Rodney Medina with us from Immidio. Rodney, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today.
Yeah, thank you for doing the recording.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this.
Yeah, we are too, and we would like to take this time to show you where we are with the Immidio Flex product. Yeah, well, to start off with, I think it's really important to know that we got rid of the name Immidio Flex Profiles. So we're also doing some rebranding. Really has to do with the fact that we're doing a lot more these days than profile management. So that's why we came up with the name Flex Plus, because Flex is really a brand name out there. A lot of IT guys know about that, but we do a little bit more than profile management now, and that's why we came up with the Plus after Flex.
Very cool. And you're going to show us all that. So it's not just profile management. You're going to show us all the user management too, right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So when we started out with Immidio a couple of years ago, we really focused on getting the freeware scripted solution written in our own decent and stable code. And well, we started to get some customers in. And the nice thing is, as soon as you start selling a product, you get a lot of feedback on what enterprises really need from a functional level. So instead of just building cool things that no one really wants to use, we really listen to our customer base and our prospects in the market out there. And that's how we evolved the last couple of years into a real user environment management solution with the release of Immidio Flex Plus, which is planned to be released at the end of this month, the end of September.
Well, very cool. Very cool. And yeah, you guys, I mean, this is a very mature product. How long has it been around? Gosh, 10 years. I
Well,
mean,
if you look at it from back to the old days, the freeware scripted solution, which was built by consultants actually, not a lot changed in the concept itself, but that started out in 2003, I believe. Yeah. And we started a company around Flex Profiles in 2008. We took about a year to completely rewrite everything to get it into a mature product, which you could actually run in an enterprise environment, provide support on it. We have a support department, hire additional developers. And I think the first release of the product, the retail product, was in 2009. And since then, we have sold over 700,000 licenses globally. So we're doing quite well, actually. It also has to do with our strategy on a pricing level. And I think one of the things that we get as a feedback from the real enterprises in the market out there is that we don't require a lot of infrastructure or anything at all. We simply leverage it, so we can actually improve environments or optimize environments without us requiring a database backend or web server or anything like that. We can just leverage any existing Windows environment.
Well, you have a bunch of bubbles up on the screen here. Can you talk a bit about these? Because this is the additional components you've added into the solution to really make it a user management solution, right?
Yeah, exactly. So this is a real big step for us, because up until now we were mainly focusing around the profile management, or what we now call personalization within Immidio Flex Profiles. And that's still a very important part within the product, and we keep developing and evolving in that area. But we also do a lot about around application configuration now, because we have a lot of knowledge about profiles, and application settings are stored in the profiles. So instead of only capturing the changes of a user and making sure it roams across all those different devices he has these days, we can also actually use our solution to push out application settings. So you don't have to repackage applications if you just want to make a simple change in an application for all users. So that's really the application configuration management, which I will show a bit later on. And then we have introduced quite some user environment settings. It's really the basic stuff. It's like the drive mappings, the printer mappings, getting the right application shortcut at the right time for the specific users there. So a lot of things you see there are not new to people. The nice thing about our solution is that we can manage it centrally in a very easy way, instead of having dispersed group policies all over the place, or you having to script it yourself. One of the things we introduced as well, it's a smaller feature, but it can be quite nice to use in a migration perspective, is that when you use our solution to capture the personalization of a user, we are able to roam the settings between different operating systems. So you can roam your settings of an application between Windows XP and Windows 7, as long as that application is using the same location in the user profile to store the settings. That has always been the case. But we now introduce something we call application migration, where we can actually make sure if you migrate an application to a newer version of the application and things change on a personalization level, that we can actually migrate that. One of the examples, which I can show you later on, is that, and I did create the configuration myself as an administrator in this case, we are able to migrate Office 2007 settings to Office 2010 settings.
Oh, very nice.
And that's one of the things that, which makes us quite unique in the user environment management space. There are some solutions out there that are capable of doing this, but they're only focusing on the application migration. And we actually simply have this as one of our core components in the product itself.
Very cool.
Well, the last thing is very important for us. It's the dynamic configuration part, which ties all these things together. Because the personalization, the application configuration, user environment, and application migration are all nice features to have. But one of the things we find very important is that you are able to target it. You make sure you manage a certain application setting on a specific location, or for a specific user group, or on a specific operating system only. So that's what we can do with dynamic configuration. It's also easy for me to show you how that would work.
Well, perfect. That's. I will shut up a bit, although I might ask you a few questions along the way. But
no, let's keep it interactive. That's what your audience expects as well. So no problem.
But we love the demos. That's what we love. So have at it.
That was the last PowerPoint deck, because I'm a technical guy as well. I really like to just dive into the product and just talk and show what we can do.
Very cool.
Really roughly, just to begin with, this is a virtual environment. I have a couple of machines running. For people that are new to Immidio Flex in the beginning, I just want to roughly show how would a very short implementation look like. So this is my domain controller, and I'm also using it as a file server. So there's only two things you need to think of when you're implementing Immidio Flex Plus. You need to think of where will I store the personal settings of the users, and where will I store the central configuration of Immidio Flex Plus. Well, it's quite easy. My users all have a home directory, and I'm going to use or leverage that home directory to store the personal settings of the users as well, managed by Flex. And then I also have a file share where the central configuration of Flex Plus is stored. And after that, the only thing you need to do is you need to configure the Immidio Flex Plus configuration through group policy. And this is a one-time only configuration, because this is where you point the client to those locations. So as you can see, the personal settings, or we call them profile archives, are stored in the home directory of the user in a subdirectory called Flex Plus. And I have pointed it to a central configuration share called Flex 80 configuration. So that's the only thing that you really need to do. After this, you install the client component, our engine, on the clients, which is a very small MSI. I think it's less than 1 megabyte still these days. And then you're ready to go. So the next step would be is to run the management console, which I'm doing on an administrative machine right here. And as you can see, I already populated the environment already. I don't want to waste a lot of time in this demo to show how you configure everything. So we have a couple of ribbon tops right here. Personalization, user environment, condition sets, which is the dynamic configuration part, and the application migration. And people that have worked with Flex profiles in the past will notice or recognize the interface, because practically everything that we had before is all now consolidated into the personalization tab. There are some specific features which are new, like conditions and user environment, but roughly these settings are known to people. So in the personalization tab, you simply create the configuration for the applications that you want to capture the personalization of the users. So as you can see, I've done this for Acrobat Reader. So one of the things that we introduced last year in a previous release of Flex Profiles, still called, is the capability of managing the personalization on the fly. We call that Direct Flex, which is enabled for Acrobat Reader right here. So just a short demo on that side. I'm switching to an XP client. I'm logged on with a user called Flex2. And let me just show you how personalization works in Flex Profiles. So you see in the home directory of the user, I've deliberately not hidden this folder for demo purposes. I have a folder which is populated by the Flex engine. So let me just start Acrobat Reader on this XP client. Well, you will notice it's the first time as a user I start Acrobat Reader. That's why I get the EULA. And let's just do some simple user customization in this application. So put this to 3. I close the application. What our engine actually does now is when you close the applications, the settings are automatically stored. So we are not bound anymore to the log on and log off moment. And this is already available since a year now in our product, but it's really an important one to provide faster logon times, because everything you manage with the direct flex capability will no longer slow down the logon process, because you suspend the loading of those settings until you load or start the application and close the application again. And it also brings a lot of dynamic, because if I just keep this session open, I switch to a Windows 7 client where I also logged on with the same user, and I start Acrobat Reader, those settings are already loaded now directly. So this comes into play when you have a very dynamic environment where you have local machines, and those users all also work on a XenApp environment or a VMware View environment as well at the same time.
Makes sense.
So that's the direct flex functionality. Yeah, so that's basically the personalization, really in short, on what we can do there. Just to, as a refresher for people, what we did in the past already. So let's just focus a little bit on something that we, on a high level, call application configuration management. It actually consists of a couple of features. So one of the things we can do is we can actually push out settings of an application. And we can also do this in a partial way. So for Paint.net, I've configured one specific setting to always be applied for a user, but I will allow him to change all the other aspects around the application. So I will just dive into that in a moment, because one of the other things I've configured for Paint.net is the capability to automatically do some other stuff when the application launches, because we now have this mechanism which we released last year, which is capable to intercept the application launch and the application exit. We just decided with Flex Plus, the upcoming release, to build additional capabilities on top of that. We actually got a lot of requests from customers on that. Why would I map a certain printer when that printer is only used from within one specific application? And the same goes for other network resources.
Oh, very cool.
So this is what we can do on the application level. I only configured a drive in a printer for Paint.net, but there's a couple of other things you can do. Some custom registry settings, running your own custom tasks. So we actually provide you the capability. If you want something very special to happen when an application launches, you're completely free to run your own command there or your own script if you want to. So a lot of customization capabilities when you launch or close an application.
Very cool.
So let me just switch to a client and show you how that would look like. So the first thing I would like to show is the partial personalization and the partial pushing out of predefined settings. So this is Paint.net, and let me just do some customization. It's just some easy stuff. So this is the way, as a user, I would like Paint.net to behave, but I also would like to have the ruler. Well, it's for demo purposes, but now let's pretend that the corporate ruler is not allowed from a company perspective.
Okay.
Yeah, so I will close the application. The settings are now stored again in that central location you have specified. So the next time you start Paint.net, you will actually get the things that I've allowed for the user to change. Those are restored when you launch the application, but the rulers are disabled again, because that's the partial pushing out of our predefined settings. So each time when you launch an application, the settings will be put back in the the corporate state.
You bet. But they can now turn on the ruler if they like, but when they go back in, relaunch the app, it just puts it back to the gold state.
Exactly. So you can do this for enforcement of certain settings, but you can also do this for badly written applications that if a user changes a certain setting within the application doesn't behave correctly anymore. But those settings you can push out each time the application is launched as well.
Oh, very cool. Very cool.
Yeah, so let me just open the computers and let me just open the printers right here. So as you can see, I have one network printer mapped, which is actually mapped by Flex Plus as well, but this one was mapped during the logon process. And I have a couple of network drives mapped, also mapped using our solution as well. I'll show you later on how that's configured. But now let's just start paint.net. And you now see that the P drive, which consists of paint.net data, is automatically mapped. And also when I go to the printers, I now see a new Xerox printer that is mapped because I've configured it to be mapped when the application paint.net is launched. So cool. When I close the application, in this case, I've configured that those mappings will be unmapped again. That's completely configurable. You can also configure it to be unmapped when you log off or never unmap and so on.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. I like it.
So that's pushing out a certain setting each time again and again, but allowing partial personalization. So that's a combination that goes quite far, but can be quite useful for certain applications. So one of the things that people will notice from the past is that the import-export section, that's actually how you configure which part of the user profiles should be personalized or should be personalizable by users. So this is up until a year ago, this was a manual task still for people to do. So we focused a lot on that because we got a lot of feedback from people that say, well, we have 600 applications and we really like the fact that you don't do it automatically like some of the other solutions do, because then you would get too much and you have no control over it. But could you help us at least with an automated way for the administrator to fill the required information in the import-export section? For this, we created a separate component. It's not licensed separately. It's really a separate installer, a separate application. The reason why this is separate is that you need to run this on a reference system, not on an administration PC, but on a reference system. It's called the Immidio application profiler, and this is actually something that helps you finding out where an application is storing its personalization. So that's why it's a separate component.
Makes sense.
It actually helps you with two things. It helps you figuring out where is a certain application storing its settings, and it will also automatically save that configuration in the central share for you. So it is a workflow process, but it can also help you to capture the initial settings that you want to push out for a user. So it's not only about the personalization part, it's also about making sure an application is starting in a certain state without actually knowing anything about the application. So let me just start Power ISO. I just installed a little demo app. And it starts in German now. And let's just put it to Danish, another language I cannot read. Yeah, so it's set to Danish. I simply close the application, and the application profile now has used a filter driver and a lot of routines that we figured out to make sure that we have an optimized result. So a lot of stuff is excluded, and we also have optimization. So if I would disable the optimization, you would see the exact changes that would have been made. But we know our format, of course, so if you use the optimization, it's a more neat and clean configuration right there. So I can just save this now in the central configuration share, or I can save it with what we call the predefined settings. And what it now does is that it actually exports the changes I've just made. And that will be the default for the users. So I will save this configuration file centrally. You see this is the folder structure that is the same as you see in the management console. Let's just call this Power ISO. And you're done. The nice thing of this is that you don't need any technical knowledge of where is that Danish setting stored in the registry. We've done that automatically for you. So if I just switch back to the management console now, I hit refresh. I now have Power ISO there. The configuration is automatically configured for you. And the only thing you need to do is enable it for the on-the-fly part. You have predefined settings here, and with the predefined settings, you can configure here how you want it to behave. If this is a very important or business critical application, and you want the application to start in the same state each time completely again and again, you just put this on, always apply this, and do not create any personal settings. I'm just going to leave it at the first setting right here. That means that only the initial time the user starts an application, it will get the settings that I've configured for him. So let me switch back to the client. These changes are picked up when you log on, or we have a refresh mechanism.
Oh, cool.
So I'm just going to hit that. Start Power ISO. And you see that it's automatically deployed now in, well, let's find it, the Danish language. But from this moment on, I'm able to personalize the application. It's just a very easy mechanism to deploy the initial settings of the application. So you don't have to package, you don't have to figure out where it stores the settings in the registry or in the user profile folder, create your own policies for it. It's a complete automated way of configuring applications for your users. That's quite, we get the most positive feedback on this feature actually, because people really love it.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Saves them time.
Exactly, yeah. So that's roughly what we can do with personalization and application configuration management. And the reason why application configuration management doesn't have its own ribbon top is because it's really integrated with the personalization capabilities.
Makes sense.
So let's switch to the user environment top right here. So you saw that the user had 2 network drives mapped. So I'm not going to go through all these properties because it's way too much, but this makes sense for a lot of people anyway. It's just a really easy way to centrally manage the drive mappings for a network. Same goes for environment variables that we can set for the users, and which you can then later on reuse within the solution itself, of course. So one of the things that is really a big step for us is that we have the capability now to manage shortcuts. So let me just open this Acrobat Reader shortcut. And you have the capability to put it on the desktop, in the quick launch bar, programs folder.
Nice.
Some advanced stuff, undo it, log off. The nice thing of this is that we can also do this for applications that, or deployment mechanisms that don't have the capability of managing shortcuts. So one of the things that some of our customers are using now, our beta customers that is that they use this for the TinUp applications. Because as you might know, TinUp itself doesn't have a shortcut and file type association management mechanism in itself. So what we can actually do is we can provide that for you.
Oh, very cool.
So we can do the same for UpV. That's a choice because UpV, if you decide to use the management server, which it natively comes with, then of course you already have shortcut and file type association management.
Sure.
If you don't want to use that, then you can actually use UpV without having any management server.
Oh, very
cool.
cool.
I've set it up like this, and in this case, I have a very dynamic way of building up the start menu and the desktop and the file type associations for Acrobat Reader X virtualized with UpV, but I don't need any UpV management server or server at all. I'm just running this from a file share now.
Very
so that's
nice.
an additional way of working with UpV.
I didn't know you could do that. That's very cool.
Yeah, we're really happy with that as well. Yeah, and the same goes for the file type associations. So if I want the JPEG extension to run paint.net, we'll just configure it quite easily like this.
Sure.
Yeah. The same goes for printers. We have the capability of managing printers. Just browse to the network, find your printer.
Nice. Makes sense. Straightforward.
Yeah, it's very straightforward. And what you see now is we have a Windows settings node right here, which only contains two features at this moment, but there's a reason why it has its separate node. You can see new things coming here in the future, of course, because this is just the beginning. We've built the fundament on which we can build a lot of additional features. We already have a large list, and the list keeps growing because when you show this to existing customers, then they really get motivated on, oh, but then we can also do this and this and this with your solution in the product. So we get a lot of feedback on features right there. So the only thing we've built in now is we can set the language, which especially in terminal server environments, which are a lot of times running centrally, but a lot of international use. So you can now easily define based on location, based on user groups, who should get which language of Windows when they log on.
Very cool.
Also, this is not very spectacular. The only thing is that we can easily hide a lot of drives. With the Windows group policies, you can only do A to E and not the rest.
Yeah.
So, and we have a lot of customization options in there. So if you want a certain file or folder to be populated with a certain INI file of an application or a certain text file, you have the capability of doing that with the files and folders and registry settings within our solution.
Very
and
cool.
If there are certain things that you cannot do with our solution, but you would like to manage it from our solution, because you can use our conditions to target when certain scripts or tasks should run, then you can just create log-on tasks or log-off tasks. So you don't need to do that through group policies again. Of course, you can run log-on scripts and log-off scripts to group policies, but what we see a lot in enterprises is that those scripts or the invoking of those scripts are managed through a lot of different group policy objects. So it's there's no nice management overview anymore. And in this case, it's very easy to see and manage those custom tasks.
Well, I've been wanting to say it. It's what I like about the user environment section. Just simple, you know. It's very straightforward. You know what I mean? You could jump from drive mappings to, you know, what have you down the tree, right? It's just very simple to manage. I like it.
Yeah, well, especially in the beginning when we started out with Flex Profiles, we got a lot of feedback of people asking us questions about, well, we would like to manage shortcuts and drives and stuff like that. And in the beginning, we were really focusing on getting people to use group policy preferences within Active Directory services.
Sure.
But we got a lot of feedback on, yeah, but we don't have the feeling we really have a management overview because it's all over the place. You have to jump from one console to the other, and well, that's why we decided after a while to just build it on a centrally, easily managed way.
You bet. And some people want it's. I mean, group GPOs are nice, right? But at the same time, you got to manage that. It's an additional layer, and if you can have everything in one interface, one tool, one solution, it's less things to break, and it's easier to implement and administrate. You know what I mean?
Yeah, agreed. Yeah. So I've been switching back and forth between two machines now, and actually all the shortcuts you see right here are actually already managed by our solution. So nothing is coming from the Windows MSIs or AppV packages itself. Everything is managed with our solution. Also, the drive mappings you've seen here, those were managed with by Flex running at logon.
Very cool.
Okay, so let's do the application migration.
Yeah,
I've already configured this. It's a quite easy process actually. As soon as you've created your migration template, which you need to import, and we will deliver the Office 2007 to 2010 template with the product as soon as we ship. Cool. So the first thing you need to do is you already need to manage the personal settings of Office 2007 with our product. So you can actually implement that in the existing environment, which I've done in the Windows XP environment. Let me just log off from the Windows 7 client, and well, we can keep this one open. Okay, so let's switch back to the management console again. And you also already need to create the personalization configuration for Office 2010. Then as soon as you create the application migration itself, you need to point it to the old configuration and the target configuration. I have imported the migration XML already, and we have optional logging. So you can see for each user, if you want to, if the migration has been successful, yes or no. So let's just see if this works now. So I'll just start Excel 2007. It's the first time as this user that I started. I will do some simple customization. I'm not an Excel guru. So I'll just disable something and change the color. That's easy to see. So I'll close the application. I think I've configured Office to be managed at log off. So that's why I'm logging off and logging on.
Okay.
So those settings are stored now by Immidio Flex Plus, the Office 2007 settings. So when I log on with the same user again to the Windows 7 environment, and actually, if I show you in the management console, I have targeted the migration only to work on Windows 7 because I don't want to migrate those settings when you log on to Windows XP.
Okay.
Yeah. So as you can see, this is Office 2010. This screen I get because these are settings that didn't exist yet, of course, in Office 2007. So obviously you need to configure those. But the personalization settings itself, which existed in 2007, are automatically migrated to Office 2010 now. So this is a very smooth transition because we see people using our solution a lot when moving from Windows XP to Windows 7. And like 90% of the applications will remain the same version when they move to Windows 7. So those are easily or easy to migrate when using our standard personalization feature. But a lot of companies, of course, are migrating to a newer version of Office once they are migrating to Windows 7. So that's why this can be very useful because if you move from Windows XP as a user to Windows 7, it's already a big change for you from the UI perspective and so on. So let's at least make sure that all applications are behaving the same as on Windows XP or the last time they were working on Windows XP.
You bet. You bet. What if you have an application that's not supported? You guys don't have a template for it. Well, what's the process then?
Well, you would need to figure out yourself what those settings are. So you have like settings stored in the current user software application 1.0 registry.
Can I use the profiler for that?
No, not for the migration.
Okay.
No. The application profiler is only usable at this point for creating figuring out where the application is storing its settings. Oh, what you could do actually is you can run the old version and the new version and just compare those two configurations. So actually, in that case, you can, but the profiler will not create that mapping table for you because that's a very sensitive task. So that's why we decided at this point not to automate it yet.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
Yep. But you can actually, that's a good point. You can actually simply run it just to figure out where both those versions are storing their settings.
Yeah.
And then you can create the mapping yourself and import it into our solution. Yeah.
That sounds good.
Okay. So the last thing that couples all those or ties all those things together are what we call conditions. So on each item within the product, so a personalization for CD Burner XP, for instance, you can go to conditions. If you, in each item within user environment, whether it being a drive or a file type association or a shortcut, you can use conditions. And the conditions are very dynamic. So I'll show you the list. These are the conditions that are available. So based on a condition, this shortcut will be created for a user, yes or no. And that can be depending on where he's logging on from. And this even works within a remote environment. So we can actually detect the location of your Citrix PN agent client or your RDP client, and based on that, you get in your remote session a certain printer, a certain shortcut, and so on. So we can actually detect if you're working on a terminal server and make sure you never get a CD burner application via appv there, because it makes no sense to provide it in the remote desktop.
Yeah, nice.
If that same user logs onto a physical desktop, then we make sure he gets the CD burner application because there it makes sense.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah. So what you can do is you can actually mix those. So I can check for an environment variable. If it exists or equals to, I'm just clicking through it. But it's not
Sure.
one condition. You can mix and match it.
Sure.
So you can also check for a group membership in AD.
I like it.
And then you can even change it to make it really complicated to and, ors, and nots, and so on.
Sure.
So it can be a large list.
Sure.
So one of the things we've decided to do to make it much more manageable. So this is quite new in the solution. And as soon as we started building it and we were talking to customers and also playing around with it ourselves, of course, we noticed, well, it's nice that we have these capabilities, but if I have a certain set that I want to configure on a multiple items within the product, I have to do it over and over again. And that's how we came up with the condition sets, which are globally managed sets. So you create a condition set, which does nothing until you configure it on an item within the solution. So I can now just do a whole bunch of things. So I'll do an IP range, and I only want it to run on 64-bit client and only on Windows 8, for instance. That's what we now call the Doc Brown condition set.
Okay.
It's centrally managed. And now on all the items which you want to apply based on the Doc Brown condition set, you just select that centrally configured set, and you're done.
Nice.
So now if I centrally want to make a change to that condition set, I can easily do that, and I don't have to go into each of those items which I've configured to use the Doc Brown condition set.
I like it.
So this is why we on a high level call this dynamic configuration, because your whole workspace is based on a multitude of conditions which you might have configured. It can be location. You can check if the appv client is installed, otherwise don't create the shortcuts for that, and so on. So it goes quite far what we can do with that functionality. Yeah.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Well, great. Anything else you'd like to show us? I think we went through it all. Have we?
Yeah, it was quite quick, but I just wanted to have a high-level overview so people can really see that it's worth their while to start investigating if they're looking for a user environment management solution, and don't think that Immidio is only about profile management. We actually have a lot of capabilities in the user environment management space.
You bet.
So So the release this product will be the end of September. At that moment, we also have fully capable trials available, so people can just register and have a 30-day license file to go with that. For existing customers, it's important to understand that the pricing will remain the same, so there's no changes. And everyone that has bought Flex profiles in the past and has the software assurance part on it, they can freely upgrade to this release as soon as it's available.
Very nice, very nice. You know, I like what you guys do. It's always it's well engineered and it's simple. You know, it's as you go through this, it's very powerful. You allow me the capability to basically do what I want, and like with the condition sets, you know, create basically the logic I want, which I find extremely important. But at the same time, it's just simple. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, that's really where we focus on, because we have a lot of discussions, of course, sometimes about certain functionality, and sometimes we just decide not to build it right now because we can't find a easy way to provide the functionality. I don't want to build functionality into our solution which no one knows how to use, or actually creates an administration mess within the organization, for instance.
You know, I've always said that good software maybe requires a manual to install it, but to use it, you should not have to take certification exams. You know,
Yeah.
it should be intuitive. Now, when you get into the big stuff, yeah, I understand that, but or logic like code and things like that because they're syntax. But in general, as you're taking me through this, it just makes sense. It's like, okay, yeah, I can do this, I can do that. Okay, cool, yeah, okay, I can put this with this and this with that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, that's actually the feedback we get from a lot of partners, consulting partners globally as well. In the beginning, they see the quick demo, and then they see, well, we need to train some of our guys. How many days should we plan? Well, at this moment, we still only plan half a day
Oh,
for
really?
yeah, I
Yeah, it
mean,
makes
it's
sense.
so easy to understand. I've just put on a video a couple of weeks ago, so people can check it out. It's on YouTube.
Yep.
Maybe you can link to it,
It's
Doug,
already on the ABCC,
which
Rodney.
shows the complete installation and initial configuration within 10 minutes of the solution.
Yep, it's already on DABCC. I picked it up about a week ago. Well, when
Oh,
you
yeah,
posted it.
yeah,
So,
you tweeted it. Yeah, I saw.
yeah, and we'll definitely put the link in with the show notes. You're probably watching this on DABCC or downloaded it from iTunes, or wherever you found this video. But head over to to DABCC or just YouTube and search Immidio. And they have in fact, it's a good channel to follow. You guys release videos not too often, but from time to time when it's appropriate. Good content. Okay, buddy. We're a little bit over. I wouldn't say over our time. We don't have any time limits on anything we do, right?
No, it's techie, so it's okay.
That's exactly right. We're having fun. Thank you so much, Rodney, for taking the time to be with us today. I very much enjoyed it. We chatted a little bit before the show, before we recorded, and that was also fun. For those guys that you didn't get to hear it, obviously, we chatted about old computers and how great it is to have iPads and Apple devices. That's sort of the nut of it, right?
Yeah.
Okay, buddy.
Well, thanks for the time as well, Doc, and well, we'll talk soon.
Absolutely. And so for those of you guys out there listening, thank you so much for taking the time to watch and listen to us. And definitely head on over to immidio.com and see what these guys have to do, are doing. Rodney, when are you going to have information about the new version of Flex Plus on the website? Will it be the end of the month, or or do you guys already have stuff up there?
Yeah, there's some stuff up there. We've been doing some sneak previews of some specific features in the past. We also have a blog, so follow the blog there. But the public release is now set for the last week of September, so that's only a couple of weeks of the date of this recording. So
Not
check
bad.
out the website. Yeah.
Next week we're all worried about getting our iPhone 5s anyway, right? So
Well, that's in the US. In Europe, we have to wait a little longer.
Oh, I before I let you go, I'll say this, and I'll say it. I'll be part of the recording because it's true and it's funny. And for all my European friends, they know. All you Europeans, you used to give me crap about it. 10 years ago, I'd come over there and you'd be like, "Yeah, look at my Ericsson phone. Look at my, all these really great phones that you'd get." But then when the Apple came around, finally we got them in the USA first.
Yeah, well, enjoy.
I'm gloating about it because I have a friend of mine from Sweden. Every time I'd see him at an iForum it was the iForum back then, he'd show, "Oh, Doug, check out this new phone I have." And it's like, "Oh, that's great. When am I going to get it? What, can I get one?" "No, it's only available in Europe, in the Nordics." It's like, then why are you showing it to me? So now I get my laugh. I send him every time I buy a new Apple device. I send him a picture of it. Ha ha. Okay, Rodney, thank you again for taking the time to be with us today.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
Take care, buddy.
Bye bye.